The story begins with a video of young Linda C. Lewis speaking directly to the person who finds the camera, sending messages to her family as if she can't believe she'll see them again. Linda C. also mentions her sister and friends but cannot say what happened to them. Several hours before this, we see Linda C. making a much cheerier video. The one filming and narrating is her older sister, Paige. The two are on a sunny island in Southeast Asia, finishing preparations for an outing. Paige is famous online because of her travel vlog, which is a partnership with friends Evan, Kahaya, and Seb. Is the newcomer to the group and still hasn't gotten used to their carefree style. She is a bit wary of the size of the plane and even asks if the luggage will fit. Seb, her boyfriend, makes jokes about it and says everything will be fine. Meanwhile, the influencer is talking to the pilot, Javier, who warns that he will keep the locator off. Very calmly, she responds that this is the vlog style too, and that her friends like to stay off the radar. Javier also makes it clear that the destination is a very dangerous place, but that doesn't scare Paige. She says she isn't going to gain more followers with cooking videos. The pilot seems increasingly worried with each of her responses, as these young people appear to be fearless. Linda C. asks what this off-the-radar thing is about. Kahaya says everything is perfect, and the only problem now is this silly concern. Linda C. feels awkward and stops asking questions, but she's still scared. Seb notices her insecurity and tries to reassure her, saying they always do trips like this. Kahaya isn't very happy with a new travel companion. She thinks Linda C. is a drag and just messes up the group. Then, Javier announces it's time to leave and everyone boards. Up in the air, Evan films Paige, who explains the journey to the fans. They're heading to Red Rock Cove, which used to be very popular among divers before being declared part of natural heritage. Everyone gets excited with a video introduction, and Kahaya doesn't miss the chance to jab at the newbie. She says the most radical content is what fans want to see, so it's worth taking the risk. In the middle of the way, the plane starts to shake and Javier tells everyone to hold on tight. He says they're almost there and points to the cove, already visible in the distance. However, the wing of the plane doesn't look very sturdy, and the turbulence only worsens. Seb tries to keep morale up, reminding everyone they've been through worse. Linda C. is terrified, and her sister says she just needs to hold on to the seat in front of her. Unfortunately, the situation is far worse than the adventurers imagine. The right wing breaks in the middle, taking part of the side of the plane with it. Paige and Evan are sucked out. Now the plane is in free fall, and all Javier has to say is, prepare for impact. The aircraft crashes into the sea and is torn apart shortly after. Linda C. surfaces, gasping for air, and starts calling for the others, but no one responds. No matter which way she turns, all she sees is the sea and the tiny silhouette of red rock on the horizon. The situation is horrible and gets much worse when the fins appear. Then Kahaya also reaches the surface, much less confident now. Linda C. comments that she saw a pair of fins and says it must be a dolphin, but the other isn't so sure about that. Seb is the next to appear. The two celebrate his arrival, and Linda C. asks if any of them saw her sister. She deduces that if the three of them survived, the rest must also be fine. Without much delicacy, Kahaya exposes the opposite reasoning, saying that the probability of everyone surviving a plane crash is very low. If 3 passengers are alive, that only decreases the chances for the rest. Besides, she saw Paige falling from the plane when the wing broke. Seb decides to cut the subject and tells Linda C. they will soon find her sister. Kahaya repeats his words in a strange tone, and Linda C. realizes the two have started to treat her like a child. This only makes her more desperate, and she starts swimming, shouting that she needs to find her sister. Regaining her normal voice, Kahaya reminds her that the focus now is to survive and conserve energy. Seb then notes that Javier has also emerged. They all swim to him, who is injured and appears to be unconscious. Linda C. tries to talk to him, asking him to hold on a little longer until they are rescued. Javier whispers and says that no one will come because the locator is off. Seb confirms that it's true. As the cove turned into a sanctuary, sports tourism is no longer encouraged in the area, and that's why they didn't want a plane to be detected. With great effort, Javier manages to warn that they can still turn the locator on. All they need, ironically, is to locate it. The pilot says it's at the tail of the plane, so Kahaya grabs her gear and dives. Linda C. keeps talking to Javier, trying to keep him awake. He says something about supplies at the cove, and then loses consciousness. Kahaya returns with an inflatable boat and says the tail is about 6 meters below them. When the two get in the boat, they realize the pilot is missing and Seb is trying to swim to the cove. Lindsay goes to him, begging him not to do that, but he insists that he can save the day if he finds a radio. While the couple argues, Kahaya sees 3 fins quickly approaching them. She starts screaming and says they aren't dolphins. Suddenly, Seb is sucked underwater. Screaming, Lindsay remains where she is, while Kahaya begs her to return to the boat. Seb surfaces one last time, and the water around him is already all red. In a flashback, we see when the two began dating. Paige announces the romance in a vlog video called The Lit Life. But later, when Lindsay isn't around, she asks Seb if he's going to tell her the secret the two share. He responds that there's no secret and walks away from Paige before his girlfriend realizes they are talking. Back in the present, Lindsay has still not moved, and the sharks are returning. Kahaya is desperate with the girl's inertia until she finally seems to wake up from her trance and begins to swim. The first shark is already very close to her, and there won't be enough time to reach the boat. Then she stops swimming when she's almost there and asks how far away the shark is. The other doesn't believe what she's doing and replies that it's 6 meters away. By the time she finishes her response, it's already 5. Lindsay starts a countdown, calculating the exact moment. Kahaya doesn't know what else to do. The shark reaches Lindsay exactly when the countdown reaches 1. She throws her body to the side, and the marine animal drags the wreckage of the plane. The girl dives, and Kahaya doesn't even breathe until she finally resurfaces behind the boat. The other sharks are still on her tail, but now she is rested enough to swim. She grabs her friend's arm, but her hand slips, and she falls back into the water. Kahaya manages to pull her into the boat at the last second, frustrating the hungry shark. The two hug relieved. Lindsay remembers the day she met Seb. Paige introduces her sister to the friends during another vlog video, and the boy seems interested right away. Kahaya asks her what her dream trip is, but Paige interrupts the interview to distribute juices, informing the fans of the brand name that paid for the drinks. When Lindsay finally manages to respond, she says she has always wanted to swim with sharks. Now, shivering from the cold in a boat with Kahaya, she definitely regrets saying that. Lindsay asks her friend about her military past, and she shows her a soldier's dog tag. Amid an enemy attack, he handed this to her because he was sure Kahaya would survive, and he wanted a part of himself to continue living. She wears the dog tag to this day as a reminder of her own will to live, never giving up the fight. Back to thinking of solutions, Lindsay suggests that they row to the cove. Kahaya says it's better to look for the locator, and they agree to try that first. To get to the tail of the plane, they first have to collect the diving gear floating everywhere. As Kahaya stretches to grab something from the surface, a shark suddenly appears, and Lindsay yanks her friend back with all her strength. Before they can breathe in relief, a second shark collides with a boat and knocks both of them overboard. Kahaya hands Lindsay a knife to defend herself against the predators and starts explaining where she should aim, but doesn't finish the sentence. Just like Seb, she suddenly disappears and only returns for a few final seconds. Lindsay swims back to the boat just in time to escape and then find herself completely alone. Moments later, amid a scorching sun, she sees a boat passing by and tries to shout and wave, but she's too far for anyone to notice. A strong jolt on the boat reminds her that the sharks haven't given up on her yet. Stashing a knife at her waist, she puts on the gear while waiting for them to tie her out. The waters seem calm as she finishes, but she feels she doesn't have the courage to enter the water anyway. More memories flood her mind, and she thinks back to when she learned to dive. Paige and Evan make her embarrassed by teasing her cowardice, but Seb always knows how to motivate her. He tells her she doesn't have to do anything to please her sister or entertain the vlog followers, and says that courage is something she only owes to herself. Thinking of those words, she's inspired to jump in and soon spots the tail of the plane. It's not difficult to turn on the locator, but she can't see around her while she's inside the tail. The school passing by scares her for a moment, and then she continues exploring the wreckage to gather anything useful. It doesn't take long for the sharks to come keep her company. She scares them off with a flare she just found, then swims to the surface. Climbing into the boat is much harder with all the weight of the gear and with no one to help her. Seeing the predators are already near, she releases the oxygen tank to be able to come up. Now all her shy insecurity has vanished, and her fear has turned into almost hysterical rage. If before she begged the sharks for mercy, now she challenges them to defeat her. The first part of the plan is over, and it's time for the rowing. She moves slowly but with determination until she sees someone floating. Recognizing Evan, she rows to him and tries to pull him into the boat. But as his body comes out of the water, she horrified realizes that this is just the upper half of her friend. Moreover, the fins are approaching, eyeing the other half. She clings to Evan and screams that she won't let this happen, but she can't stop them. What remains in her hands is just the boy's helmet, with a camera attached to record every minute of excitement for the vlog. It is with this camera that she records the goodbye video for her family, but the battery dies before she can say that she loves them. Holding the knife, she thinks of joining her friends. Her memories save her once more. We see the continuation of the day. She learned to dive and discovered that it was on this occasion that she kissed Seb for the first time. Evan makes a cheesy comment after she dives, but Paige seems to get in a bad mood. Revigorated by this memory, Lindsay abandons the moment of weakness and begins to row as if she hadn't done anything else in her life. She manages to cover an impressive distance and gets very close to the cove. She can even see the raft with the information sign. However, of course, her marine adversaries won't let her escape so easily. Incredulous, she sees one of the sharks biting the edge of the boat, which begins to deflate. She does what she can to speed up the pace while the predators don't leave her alone. Using the same trick as before, she waits for them to get close before jumping. The sharks gobble up the deflated boat, and while she climbs onto the raft, she ends up injuring her hand in the process. The sign warns that crossing the cove's boundaries without permission is prohibited. Laughing at the threat, she opens the compartment under the warning and discovers that Javier was right. There is a complete emergency kit exactly for cases like this. After drinking water and taking care of her hand, she tries to talk to someone on the radio, but there's no response. She then opens a case full of flares and uses one of them. Now her chances have improved quite a bit, but she is very tired and hungry. Her eyes are almost closing when a familiar face appears. Paige is floating very close to her. She saw the flare and let the tide bring her in. Lindsay is already getting nervous seeing her in the water, knowing that the deadly trio can return at any moment, but she doesn't say anything to avoid scaring her. Paige hurt her leg in the accident and can't swim. Lindsay tries to throw a rope several times, but her sister doesn't cooperate much and is almost falling asleep. Then Lindsay reveals there are sharks nearby. Paige regains agility immediately and grabs the end of the rope. Lindsay starts pulling her when she sights the danger. The two almost panic, but Paige manages to escape the fatal bite and climb onto the raft. The reunion is sad because Lindsay has to tell her what happened to the others. She tends to her sister's leg, and the two begin to argue when Paige starts complaining about the bandage. In a firm tone, Lindsay says it was a mistake to include her in the group knowing their styles don't match. She also admits her own guilt, confessing that she has always forced herself to do things she doesn't like just to match her fearless sister, under the illusion that this way she would have some value. It is at this moment that someone finally responds on the radio. Two guys are approaching by boat, and one says he will call the Coast Guard. The sisters cheer upon hearing this, but the joy lasts very little. When Lindsay warns them of the danger in the water, the two stop the boat and begin to look for the sharks. The boat is soon hit by one, throwing one boy into the water. The other tries to help him and ends up losing an arm. Lindsay can't take any more of these twists and turns, and Paige tries to comfort her sister. In another flashback, we discover a bit more about the tension between the two regarding Seb. On their one-year anniversary, Paige says the vlog followers love the romance, but it would be even more exciting if they broke up. She suggests they stage a fight, triggered by an imaginary betrayal. The friends support the ruse, but Seb refuses to play along and gets angry. Now Lindsay's memories start to blend with reality, and she finds herself losing her boyfriend again. She wakes up determined to take care of those sharks and swim to the boat. Together, the sisters devise a counterattack scheme. Paige lassos a big rock, and Lindsay splashes the water, calling the sharks. She's almost giving up when one answers her call, and the two nearly die of fright. Paige says the idea is too risky, but Lindsay disagrees. Under her sister's shocked gaze, she simply jumps into the water. The three sharks start swimming towards her, and Paige screams in despair. The girl narrowly escapes again, but the same can't be said for the shark. Paige pulls the stone at just the right moment and hits it on the head. Paige is very proud of her brave younger sister, and the two celebrate. However, the reality is that there are still two enemies left, and there are no more loose rocks around. Lindsay then sees the harpoon that the boy in the boat was using and decides to fetch it. Wrapping some rocks in used bandages, the two trick the sharks with the odor. They follow the rocks to the right while Lindsay swims to the left and grabs the harpoon. However, the sharks soon catch onto the trick and turn back. This time, Lindsay won't escape by a hair's breadth. Seeing that the shark is too close, Paige charges at it, armed only with a small knife. She manages to save her sister, but her good leg bears the brunt. Lindsay drags her onto the raft and begins to bandage her up. Feeling this could be the end, Paige opens her heart and confesses that she also wanted to be like Lindsay. The younger sister has always been more beloved by everyone, and Paige felt she needed to invent absurd adventures to get the same attention. Finally, she reveals that she tried to get with Seb when they were already together. He rejected her because he really loved Lindsay. In fact, he was planning to propose to her during a dive on this trip. Lindsay is moved by the revelations and then realizes that Paige is in very bad shape. She tries to wake her up, but it's too late. Then Lindsay begins to focus on revenge. She prepares the harpoon and a rope, then starts splashing her feet in the water and waits until the shark is within reach and strikes it with the harpoon, trapping it close to her. Then she pours gasoline over it and aims a flare right at its head. The plan works, but the last shark retaliates, taking Paige with it. Lindsay's reaction is one of pure anguish, but she doesn't waste time because of it. Apologizing to her sister, she jumps into the water and swims as fast as she can to the boat. Arriving there, she sees that the engine won't turn on, and the radio remains silent. With a scream of rage, she nearly gives up. But then she remembers the oxygen tanks and starts a new plan. Attaching the knife to the tank with tape, she stands at the edge of the boat until the shark approaches. When a gigantic mouth opens right above her, Lindsay breaks the tank's valve, turning it into a projectile. The mechanism pierces through the shark in the air, and it plunges into the water for the last time. 6 months later, Lindsay is recording a video for her sister's vlog. She says everyone already knows the details of the tragedy, but what matters now is Paige's legacy and that of her friends. For this reason, she announces that she will continue their work.